Musician James Patrick Gavin grew up in North London, steeped in Irish culture. Now his debut album, Chewing the Fat, will be launched on his home turf at the iconic Union Chapel, Islington on Monday, 5th of November. Now there'll be a whole host of talented co-performers. You can book now at unionchapel.org.uk or see our website irishradio.org for details. To tell us more, I'm pleased to welcome James online. James, good to speak to you.
Hello. Well, nice to have me here. Thank you.
James, a real pleasure. Now, you describe your album as a love letter to my family and Ireland. Where are your family from in Ireland?
So my dad's from Fermanagh in Northern Ireland, from a place called, close to Enniskillen, place called Mount Drum, if anybody's heard of it.
Okay. Now, you've a close relationship with your grandmother Mina, short, of course, of Philomena, and she features on the album giving some observations. And you interviewed her in 2017, last year. I believe she was a little reluctant, but you managed to coax her into it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I had to record her basically in secret for maybe 70% of all the audio that I used, and then I managed to actually sit her down and do an interview. But I think that's why it's all natural. There's nothing scripted. Everything is very much how she would talk in the house or speak, you know.
Right. Now, the album Chewing the Fat is beautifully presented. It comes with a booklet where the inspiration for each song is given in words and photographs. Now, your aim was to create a concept album where there's a theme running throughout the collection. What inspired you?
Well, I think, I'm quite eclectic with my musical taste, so I think it just came from a lot of different places. I think I listened a lot to Van Morrison's Astral Weeks and, things like that, just things that have a story or a narrative to them, and I really enjoy that. I really like the idea of being taken on a journey, especially with music, and I think you have to listen to the album. You can listen to it in its smaller parts, but I think as a whole, it's best to listen to it from beginning to end in one go, and I really like that. I almost thought of it as a film, really.
Right. Now, it works very well, I'll have to say. Now, we'll be featuring tracks such as Tay, dedicated to your late grandfather Jim, who loved his cupping of tea, whether he was ditching, harvesting or chatting to the cows. I understand that when he passed away, a huge number of cups of tea were shared with neighbours and friends.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you know yourself, it's a big part of the culture over there. And as my granny says in the tune, you become part of the family when you have a cup of tea. So it's, the second you walk in, you have a cup of tea. The second you sit down, you have another cup of tea. Before you leave, you probably had about 10 cups of tea and, half a ton of biscuits.
Indeed. Now, through this example and visiting the homestead in Ireland, you've seen the working of the close-knit community. Now, the story behind your album is it's of three generations of your family emigrating to London. Now, you were raised in London and taught traditional music by the talented Karen Ryan, a former interviewee indeed of our programme, who's director of the successful Return to Camden Town Festival. What made you take up the fiddle rather than embrace pop culture?
I don't know, I think it just kind of resonated with me, I kind of grew up with the music around me from the second I was born, my dad would be listening to everything. I mean, I suppose that's where my eclectic taste comes from, but there'd always be a trad album or the Dubliners or the Pogues or whatever going on, so, it just kind of, I suppose it seeped through osmosis, and there's a big culture of it from, I grew up on Holloway Road in North London, and, most of my friends, whether I don't know if I did it subconsciously or not, ended up being from Irish families. So, you just grow up around it.
Indeed. Now, of course, this genre of music is in demand. Now, James, your father is a musician and singer and would have liked to devote more time, indeed, to this craft. Now, presumably he's encouraged you every step of the way in pursuit of a professional career, having taken you to see the likes of Van Morrison and the Popes at the Fleadh from an early age.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I mean, I think I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him, really, in a lot of ways. It's not that he forced me into anything, he just very much encouraged it and sort of, said he helped me along on as much as he could, And again, in this album, he helped me immensely. It was kind of him pushing me. He's like, when are you going to do one? When are you going to do one? And I was like, okay, I'll do one. And then, over the course of about 3 or 4 years, it came together. And a couple of the songs on the album were written by him, and they...
Excellent.
I think he's an integral part of the whole thing.
Now, you've spoken of the potential for something of an identity crisis for children growing up in the UK. to Irish parents. Would you say that making traditional Irish music, as previous generations of the family have done, goes a long way to bridging the gap and staying sort of true to your roots?
I think so. I think music is, it's a great communicator. And it's a great connector. I like the idea of, it's kind of a tangent, but years ago I played a tune, a carolling tune, to somebody in France, and they started crying, and it really dawned on me the fact that this tune was probably written 400 or 500 years ago, and it could touch somebody that far in the future, and I think that's the beauty of the connection that you get through music, and I think it taps you into the culture, if that makes sense.
Indeed. Now, interesting, you actually studied guitar at the Institute of Contemporary Music in Kilburn, funding your studies by doing sessions. Did that help you decide on the direction you wanted to take musically?
No, I think I fell into it by accident. I thought I'd always play the fiddle and I'd always play, trad folk music. But I think I fell into it really by accident. I say, as a full-time career. Like I say, I'm very eclectic with my musical taste.
Right, and now you actually teach music yourself?
Bits and pieces here and there, just the odd student here and there, like I say. But I mostly like gigging and recording and working on music.
Right, now moving on to your gig at the Union Chapel, Islington, on the 5th of February. How will the tale of migration as told through your granny's eyes transfer to a live concert?
Well, I'm going to use a few different mediums. I think there's obviously the musical aspect. I'm going to also have projections on the night, and I'll probably also have the granny audio going through, much like the album. So it'll be an immersive experience. That's what I'm aiming for, anyway.
Right, now it sounds as if you've definitely have some effective techniques planned. Who have you collaborated with on the album, and will they be in the lineup at Union Chapel?
Yeah, luckily enough, I've managed to get everybody who's played on the album. So that'll be Jez Hellard, Jay Owen, my dad, Orla McAuliffe, Tad Sargent, Dominic Henderson, Tommy Blackruff, Adrian Lever, Hugh O'Neill, and probably a couple of other special guests that you just have to turn up to see them.
Excellent, sounds good. Now, has your granny Mina had a chance to listen to the album? And if so, what was her reaction? She must be proud of you.
Yeah, well, she has heard it. She said she was very pleased with it. She realised that I'd been recording her surreptitiously and called me a smart boy. And, I think she was pleased with it. I think she thought her voice she sounded old on there, but I don't think so. I think she came across really.
Indeed, she does. Now, we've featured many artists who've appeared at the Union Chapel. It's still a working church and a drop-in centre indeed for the homeless. Now, the acoustics are fantastic. It's apt that this venue is on the doorstep where you actually grew up.
Yeah, I mean, it just made sense. I was racking my brain basically at where to launch this, and everyone had suggested different places, and I just thought the only one that would really suit would be the Union Chapel. So it's a big step, but I think it really sort of features in the story of that area, and it kind of makes sense, and it's about the atmosphere and the way it builds that,
Right. Now, you're known professionally as James Patrick Gavin. I believe this is to avoid confusion with an artist with a similar name.
Yeah, there's a guy called Gavin James. Normally I just go around by James Gavin, but, I thought I'd use my middle name to avoid the confusion. It's the only thing that works if you want to type it into Google or into YouTube as James Patrick Gavin.
Right. Now, you're an established talent in your own right, and the album and the upcoming gig will certainly put you on the map still further. You must be delighted with the culmination of years putting together the material has resulted in the release of Chewing the Fat.
I feel very privileged and humbled, really. All the people that came together to make it what it is. Like I say, it's almost like a collaborative process. It's very rare that you can get this amount of people working together on something, and especially they're all very, very good at what they do. It's not a bunch of amateurs in any way.
Indeed. Now, having listened to the album Chewing the Fat, I definitely encourage people to turn out and see this multi-instrumentalist and composer, James Patrick Gavin, accompanied by award-winning artists on the accordion, bazooka, bowron, flute, guitar, pipes and banjo. Some of London's finest folk musicians are on the bill, as James has already outlined. You can book now at unionchapel.org.uk or see our website irishradio.org. James, I wish you continued success with the album and, of course, have a great night at Union Chapel.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Lovely to talk to you, James. Thank you
Yeah.
indeed.
Likewise. Cheers.